Can you summon empathy for fossil fuel workers in climate conversation?
Oh, yes. Oh, absolutely. I mean, we all do, right? I mean, we know that fossil fuel workers aren't responsible for the climate crisis.
There's a lot of villainizing fossil fuel companies, for sure. Executives are different than rank and file. There's a lot of anger and villainization in the climate that gets people fired up and mad and mobilized. Not sure it's healthy mobilization, but it works in the short.
You mean fighting back against climate activism? Is that what you're talking about?
Villainizing supply, villainizing, which there's no doubt that oil companies
we have to
right
recognize, we have to recognize that fossil fuels is the basis for our whole lives, our economy, our so-called progress. Although I do have to think sometimes, would it have been better if we'd never discovered fossil fuels? Yes, it would have. However, we have to recognize that it did spawn a lot of the things that make our lives easier and that we take for granted. But they knew 40 years ago that what they were burning was going to destroy the planet, that it was destroying our climate, because their scientists told them in granular detail, by the way, and we know this now because we have the reports. So the reason that they could easily be demonized, I mean, let's demonize them as much as we can, because they knew and they didn't stop drilling. They said that's not as bad for the world as global famine and nuclear holocaust. And they kept drilling, and they knew all the way back then, and they lied to us. So it's their fault. They try to blame us. They say it's our fault and the government's fault. It's their fault. And we have to demonize them, but not the workers. We have to make sure that when we transition from fossil fuels to a green, sustainable energy future, that those workers aren't the victims, that they're not the stranded assets that have to be left behind, but that they are trained the way they do in Germany. In the reception before here, there's a gentleman here who is German and who knows very well what this means. That Germany is a coal-driven country, and they have, this is what we have to do, government, community, unions, environmentalists, they all sit down at a table together and they figure it out. Nobody's 100% happy, but they all know why they decided to do it this way. The workers are trained while they're still working in the coal industry, and then they transition out of the coal industry to sustainable jobs. That's what has to happen here, and we have to hold our leaders accountable if they don't.